Hey everybody, my name's LadyAlleta, and this is the speed paint of my user icon. I've been using the reference photo that I had for this as my icon for years, and I wanted to try out digital painting, and I thought the most suitable thing would be to try and do my icon. I started out with tracing the reference photo's basic shapes so that I would have a general idea of where to put my colors. And I started out with the petals. As this is my first digital painting, I didn't know everything off the bat. It was quite a learning curve. However, I feel like I got the hang of it as I went through it. The main three tools that I used was the ink tool, the blender tool, and the airbrush tool. The ink is what I use to lay down sharper lines. Then I use the airbrush tool to basically blend in some colors. And I use the blender tool predominantly to soften any of the ink marks that I felt were just a little bit too strong. I know the video skips around a little bit. That's mainly because there were certain techniques that I tried that I didn't like and I ended up scrapping. So I went in and I actually tried to put in a white layer in the background, and that didn't really work out for me. So if you see random bits of bright orange in the background, it's because I was trying to get my white spaces. I ended up cutting that later on. One of the struggles I did find with this is, as a watercolor artist, I'm used to laying down big washes of color in order to figure out the areas of the painting. And I was noticing that with my background it just was not looking right, so I added in a wash layer. But I really enjoyed being able to go back and crispen up the petals so that they weren't included in the wash. The main thing that I struggled with in this painting was the center of the flower, and it looks complete throughout the video, but I actually redid it 3 times. I have the final design towards the end of this video. That I really enjoyed about digital painting was being able to focus on individual layers as opposed to one solid piece. And if I didn't like how a layer was turning out, I did have the ability to go in and erase it or delete the entire layer altogether. One of the challenges that I had when trying to recreate this icon is my image, my original reference photo image, isn't very detailed, and it was very hard for me to tell where exactly the leaves were and what the leaves were doing. And I think that's one of the biggest struggles I had with the painting, is I didn't quite understand where the leaves laid and how they were folded. But I'm pretty happy with how they turned out. The last 2 leaves were the hardest for me, and I left them intentionally. But I'm really quite happy with how they turned out. I think that for a first try at digital art, it turned out pretty okay. When working with the layers, I did notice that a lot of the techniques that I was using, I needed to go back into the layer and make sure that there was no additional paint that would have been underneath or on top of the other layers. So you can see that I go in, then I use the eraser tool to actually get the negative space back where the other leaves fall predominantly. And I noticed that was really making an effect as the layers were stacking on top of each other, similar to watercolor. So I had to be very careful as to where I put my paints and just make sure to trim it up, but I really liked the challenge. I did have one hiccup when I was streaming on Twitch making this speed paint. One of the videos wasn't downloading, so I did lose the part of the video where I worked on the leaf in front of the stem, and you can see that it'll just suddenly appear because I don't have that footage. I do apologize, but I hope that you can see how it turned out. With the center of the flower, I decided to make a basic copy of the ring, and I wanted it to be very geometric and to repeat because of the symmetry in nature. So I used the movement tool, the copy and paste, just for that, and I think it really helped it look more organic. And I like that that's a feature you can do on digital paintings that you can't easily do in traditional. But I want to thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this speed paint, and take care.